Hello and welcome to Eva's House of Spirit. I'm Eva, and today I'm going to talk about Chaos Magic and my connection to it. Before I talk about Chaos Magic in brief, for those that don't really know much about it, I want to talk a little bit about me in relation to Chaos Magic. What drew me, I think, to Chaos Magic, although when I first began sort of practicing in a very chaos-centered way, I didn't realize I was doing it, but I think what drew me in that direction was the freedom that I feel really is inherent in the philosophy of chaos. For those of you that maybe don't know, I began study and practice in the realm of witchcraft, magic, the occult, all kind of metaphysical things from the age of 15. And I began with Wicca, but over the years I gradually branched out. And it was just a journey of seeking, and I never, I think, felt comfortable in just one place. So I think, in a sense, maybe chaos really was the best place for me, or maybe I was just kind of always meant to be a chaos pathwalker. So I think around my later 20s is when I really began, I think, truly practicing in a way that could be considered chaotic, in the sense of, chaos magic. But I didn't realize what I was doing at first. I only really came to recognize what I was doing as chaos magic, the fact that I was sort of practicing in that way when I began later, sometime, I think it was relatively recent. I think I was probably, maybe I was like 30 or 31 or something like that when I really started looking at the philosophy of chaos magic. And when I came upon the 6 core principles, I sort of recognized and said, like, wow, that's kind of what I already do, because again, I sort of came into this way unknowingly in my later 20s. But anyway, so that's how I came to it, and it was kind of like it was there before I realized what it was, which is, I think, similar to stories I've heard from other witches or pagans that, they say, oh, I was always this way. I didn't realize it until later when I discovered, what I was doing was witchcraft or paganism or what have you. It was kind of much the same. It was like, started with Wicca, went with that for a while over the years, kind of like, slowly started exploring other things, various different paths. And then in my later 20s, it was kind of like, well, why can't I sort of draw from all of these? But it was more than that. It was more than that. There are certain things that set an eclectic pagan or an eclectic witch apart from a chaos magician. And I'm going to go into the 6 core principles, and you'll see what exactly is the loose framework that sort of defines the practice of chaos magic, like what makes a chaos magician, sort of. But the 6 core principles, it's a very loose framework. So that said, I think I'm going to start talking in brief about like what chaos magic is, for those of you that may not be as familiar with it or familiar with it at all, Chaos Magic is a relatively new approach to magic. It's only round about 4 decades old. But despite it being rather contemporary, it's no less valid or effective than older paths or magical philosophies. And I say this because I find this to be true. You know, as a chaote, I empirically, through my own experience, have found this to be true. But you don't have to take my word for it. If you find yourself questioning chaos, well, you might want to put it to the test. You know, that's something that really only your experience will tell you best. So I'll say that I find it to be a valid and very effective philosophy and practice. But again, if you question it, you may want to test that out for yourself. In a nutshell, chaos is very open-minded, personal, and lacking of limitation. Chaotes, which that's a term we use to refer to ourselves as chaos magicians. Chaotes is a term we use. Chaotes are very varied. Our specific techniques and approaches, even our beliefs or lack thereof, are very different. For the most part, we're really, really varied. I mean, in a sense, I see this also in the witchcraft community, the very Wiccan or how can I put it? Not all witches are Wiccan, but in the witchcraft community, those that practice witchcraft in the sense of the European style, there's also a lot of variety there, but there are certain things that do sort of define chaos in a light way. Like it's not a really tightly, you know, how can I explain it? It's a path that is, you're given a general direction and it's like, okay, run with that, okay? It doesn't completely lack structure. The 6 core principles of Chaos Magic, they underlie its, you know, philosophy. They are just the most basic philosophy, or not basic philosophy, but they're the basic framework of basically the concept of chaos as a practice. And let me explain what they are, what the 6 core principles are, for those of you that are not familiar with them. And you may find, possibly like I did, that you sort of are already on this path but didn't realize it, because that happened to me, and I'm sure that some of you it may be true for as well, but I'm going to go into that. Excuse me, let me just take a sip of my coffee. Okay. The first core principle is about desensitizing or deconditioning, and what this refers to is, as we grow up, we receive certain messages, ideas, preconceptions or biases. We kind of receive these messages. They're kind of drummed into us as we grow up from our society, our families, our, you know, cultures, you know, whatever agents of socialization happen to be kind of guiding our upbringing. And the first core principle, what that means to desensitize or decondition yourself, is to sort of like wipe the slate clean, like take all those biases and toss them right out. And the reason why this is important to do is because it's really important to question and to come from an unbiased place. So that's basically the first core principle. The second core principle of chaos magic is to value or uphold your personal experience, your empirical experience, over anything you hear or read. And that makes a lot of sense because, how do you know that what you've heard, what you've been told, or what you've read is true? You really don't unless you have something firsthand that substantiates what you've read or heard. So, though it's not saying completely discredit anything someone tells you or anything you've read. I mean, it's not so much that everything else is bullshit. It's just telling you, take it with a grain of salt, question it, seek out maybe your own experience to substantiate what they're saying, or find some first-hand empirical evidence. Okay. Now, the third core principle of chaos magic is about technical excellence, and this is very important as well. What it's basically about is developing yourself as a practitioner. And keeping a witch's notebook is one method of doing this, where when you approach a practice or develop a method of your own, or when you get ideas that are sort of outside the box, which is also another, usually that's another signature trait of Chaotes, is we tend to think very much outside the box. When you get ideas like that, you refine them, you fine-tune them, you hone them so that they're like spot on, so that they're technically excellent. And the reason why you're doing this is so that you can become the best practitioner that you can be. Your methods, you don't want to be, well, I can't really tell you what you want or don't want, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, though you can be like a sloppy, sort of haphazard dabbler, like, why would you want to do that if you could really refine your practice and be the best that you can be? And also in fine-tuning your skills and your techniques and your ideas, you are likely to discover other things, along the way. So that's something that's very beneficial as well. The fourth core principle of chaos magic, is the avoidance of dogma. I love this core principle. Dogma is like that whole mentality of my way or the highway, like the I'm right, you're wrong kind of crap that some people throw at you. Chaotes are like, none of that. None of that. We just do not subscribe to that. We're like, to each their own, different strokes for different folks. My truth may not be your truth, and that's cool. That's cool. And I think that's just it's so freeing. It really just, it frees you to be who you are, and that's so important. Chaos magic, in my opinion, is really truly more of a philosophy than a religion. It's more of a path than a religion. A lot of chaotes, honestly, a lot of people view it from a psychological sort of standpoint, and therefore a lot of chaotes are not necessarily even religious. Like, there are atheist chaos magicians, there are like agnostic chaos magicians. You don't have to have religious belief to be a chaote, but you can. Some chaotes also will, their beliefs will be shifting. Their belief is more of a tool. It is not like a solid, steadfast way of life. So I believe the avoidance of dogma is awesome. And I say that if anyone out there, if you really feel called to chaos magic, but you also happen to have religious beliefs, hey, take them with you. You can believe whatever whatever resonates with you. That's your truth, and that's cool. And you can be a chaos magician, and you can also retain your beliefs. So anyway, the fifth core principle of chaos magic, it concerns utilizing a diversity of approaches in your practice. You're drawing on many different paths. And I love that because for me, in my belief, I happen to personally believe, and like I said, don't take things that I say as like gospel solid truth. Like, I want you to question them. I want you to find your own truth. But I'm going to tell you what I believe. I believe the truth is in many places, and I believe that all roads lead to Rome. And I believe that it's very freeing and very enriching, and you're sort of widening your array of resources when you draw from many paths or practices. When you use a diversity of approaches, you're sort of widening, you're widening things out for yourself. You have so much more available to you. So I think that's something that's really, really a positive core principle to be behind chaos magic, and that's one that I've always, I think, been all for, or well, since my late 20s, I've been all for pretty much. And then the sixth core principle of chaos magic concerns the pursuit of gnosis. Gnosis is like, it's a deeper knowing. It's a knowing that, it's like, it's a sort of attaining of enlightenment, but it's a sort of knowledge or enlightenment that wasn't told to you. Like, it wasn't something that you read in a book, or that your religion provided you with, or that came from some external kind of source. Gnosis is sort of like a hidden and very core sort of knowledge or truth, like an enlightenment. And chaos magicians will often pursue gnosis through altering their consciousness, and the way that they will alter their consciousness is through inhibitory states, or not states, inhibitory, inhibitory states, or excitatory states. And what these are is like, okay, inhibitory, it's more of a going inward. Inhibitory states are like meditation or visualization, or maybe anything where really you're going inward, introspecting, or doing something that is more like chill, Excitatory, on the other hand, is more of a stimulated state, or a state of arousal, or something where you're very active, and it puts you kind of in an altered state of consciousness through like excitation. And examples of excitatory states can be like, for example, dancing, maybe being part of like a drumming circle, having sex, things like that. So chaos magicians will often, and these are not the only ways to do this. There are many ways to put yourself, in altered states of consciousness through either inhibitory or excitatory states. And chaos magicians will do this. They will alter their consciousness in seeking of gnosis, and seeking that deeper truth. So this is what pretty much, this is the loose framework, these 6 core principles that sort of loosely defines like what chaos magic as a practice, what it sort of is. Um, and I do find that this is definitely a path that I feel really suits me, because I've never been happy to follow. I have always, since I was a child, been very independently minded. Um, I've always been very I've always been very much about sort of going my own way, and I like freedom. I love the fact that Chaos Magick, it's very freeing. I love that it grants the practitioner the freedom to be who they are, and to know and to trust their own truth, knowing that firsthand, they have found it to be true for themselves. They're not just going on like what some person, some clergy person or some person wherever just said, like, this is what you do. It's not just like, oh, I'm just doing this because they said this is how you do it. This is a path where you find things to be true for yourself, and so therefore that's why you do them, and it's not like you're going on secondhand whatever. You know it to be true. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, please, I welcome you to put them in the comment box. That said, I'll see you next time.